A very happy new year to all our viewers of this channel, Sumita Roy's English Classroom. As you know, I'm Professor Sumita Roy. Today we have a video where we are going to talk about how to start a conversation. It is very important for us when we meet people to start a conversation. Therefore, we should know what are the various ways in which we can start a conversation. I'm going to mention to you 10 important points, of which one you have already seen, where I started by wishing all of you a happy new year. During this time, for a few days to come, you can start the conversation by wishing the other person a happy new year. But before we begin, please do not forget to watch the videos completely. Watch all the videos which are there on the channel. Like, share, subscribe, and comment whenever you feel like. Now we are going to talk about how to start a conversation. There may be many different people with whom you may want to start a conversation. Usually during the festive season, we have many gatherings. We have many parties, get-togethers, social conversation. So if you have a casual gathering and you want to talk to people there, you need to start a conversation. So point number one out of all the points is that you have to decide which is the group to which you're talking. Suppose you meet a colleague in your office and you want to start a conversation. Every morning you meet them and every morning you need to start some kind of a conversation. Will you take the lead? That is the question. Yes, you must take the lead when you want to start a conversation, and how you should do it I will talk to you about in the remaining points. But point number one is, who is the person with whom you're starting the conversation? For different people and different contexts, we have different kinds of conversation which we have to start. Suppose it is a group of people. You are meeting them for giving a lecture, or you are meeting them because all of you have come to attend a function. Then you have to do it differently because it's a group of people. If it's an individual, then what do you do? These are all points which you have to keep in mind, and that is what I'm going to talk to you about now. The first point which I told you is, you have to remember the person or the people you're talking to and the kind of situation in which you are talking to them. Suppose it's a very sad situation, then you have to talk accordingly. You have to start the conversation keeping that situation in mind. Whoever you're speaking to, in a bereavement, in some sorrow, in some difficulty, you have to talk in a totally different way. So keep that in mind. The second point is how I started this video. If you go back, you will see I wished all of you a happy new year. Now, what are we doing here? We are greeting the person. So the best way to start a conversation is by a warm and friendly greeting. Whether it is a stranger, whether it is a person you know, please start on a positive note with a greeting which you feel that you are giving. If you say good morning and you don't really mean that you wish the person has a good morning, then that is no conversation starter. To start a conversation, you can always say that, hope you are doing well, or how are you today? These are all the things which you can say. I will make a video on the common phrases used in conversation or common expressions which are used in conversation. But today I'm going to tell you only that the number of points you have to keep in mind when you are going to start a conversation, not an entire conversation. I have given you many videos where actual conversation pieces are there because most of you are asking for conversation. So there are many of them. But this is not a conversation where people are talking. This is where you, as a learner of the language, or you who wants to practice the language, is starting a conversation. So first start with greeting. First start by saying that, how are you today? Or how are things with you today? Or you say good morning or hello or hi. Or you say, wish you a happy new year, wish you a happy Christmas. It was slightly further. Or any festival, any special occasion. Or you can start by saying happy birthday, happy anniversary. Suppose these are the occasions when you're meeting the person. Then that becomes your greeting. When you wish the person something by, choosing a situation, you use that as the greeting. That is point number 2. We have to remember that we are going to talk about 10 points. So I have given you examples of all the people you can speak to in different contexts. Then second point, I gave you how to greet a person. Now we move to the next point, and that is you can ask a simple question. You can say, are you free today? If it's a friend, if it's a person you would like to spend some time with, if it's a person you want to show something to, or you want to take them somewhere, then you start with a simple question. Are you free today? Do you have some time to spare? Do you think we could go out together today? Shall we go for dinner this evening? Simple questions are always good at conversation starters. So once you have greeted the person, once you have chosen the context, then you can always ask a simple question. This is the way in which conversations can be started. You say, hi, there is a nice exhibition next door. Shall we go there? You are greeting the person, and you, instead of breaking the flow of your thought or your words, you are continuing. There's an exhibition. Shall we visit the exhibition? So this asking a simple question is one way in which you can always carry out the conversation. You must remember that to carry out the conversation, to start the conversation, a simple question is always helpful. Earlier also I gave you a couple of simple questions by saying, how are you today? Or how are things with you? These are also important as conversation starters, where you use a simple question. You can also ask a simple question about family or friends or things like that. You say, hello, nice to have met you. I wanted to ask how your son is. Or I wanted to ask if your daughter got through the examination. Now these are specific contexts. You already know something and you are asking a question based on what you know. So point number 3, for different people, for different situations, it changes all the time. You have to keep that in mind. Then you can also start a conversation. Of course, greeting is there for everything. And by making a comment, you say, hi, the weather is very pleasant today. That's a way of starting a conversation. You say, hello, I read an article which you wrote in the newspaper. So you are talking to a journalist. You make a comment. You say that I read your article, or you talk about the weather, which is what often all of us do, talking about the weather. Then you say that you can make comments about, I heard that you had bought a new house. Hi, I heard that you bought a new house. Good morning. And then you make another comment by saying that your garden is looking very green today. You are commenting. You are using some context to comment. Suppose you're speaking to your colleague. You start by saying, "Good morning. I'm sure you have completed all the files which we had to do yesterday." So you are making a comment. You are assuming that something is done and then you are saying it. You can also make a comment by saying, "Hello, I heard that you won a prize." Then, the conversation continues by saying, you're saying that you won a prize. Then you continue the conversation by the other person telling you what is that prize he or she won, why was it won, and so on. To continue the conversation, you have to keep repeating these strategies. Now I'm telling you only how to start a conversation, where point number 4 is to make a comment. But when the conversation is being carried out also, you need to make a comment. I have given you conversation between two friends. If you go back to another video, you will find that a conversation between two classmates, where one person says something and the other person makes a comment. That is how the conversation is carried out. Or one person says something, the other person asks a question. Then the conversation is carried out. So these are not only methods of starting a conversation, but these are also methods of continuing the conversation. You must remember that unless we know how to continue a conversation, the conversation comes to an end. I say hello, you say hello, finished. That is not the way in which communication is done. Communication is always a two-way process. One person speaks, the message is transmitted to another person or another group of people. They decode the message. Now the speaker has coded the message, put it in a language. Language is a code. And then these people, they understand the code and they decode it according to their mindset. Then they code a message and they transmit it. The other person gets it. So conversation is always a two-way process. You cannot have conversation alone unless you are learning a language. In many videos I have told you this, that when you are learning a language, use the mirror to speak. Pretend as though you're two people. You speak for one person once, then you speak for another person. Suppose you have a good voice quality, you can change your voice and sing for both. I remember one great singer, playback singer. The female voice person did not come that day. So this singer said, "Don't worry, I will sing the male and the female voice myself." That is one of the very famous Hindi songs which we have. So you can imagine how, while practicing, we might converse on our own, but when we talk to others, when we are carrying out a conversation with a person or a group, making a comment, asking a simple question, these are also ways in which the conversation continues, not only start, but also continue. Now we move on to the 5th point. We have covered the first 4. We started by the people and context. Then we started with greeting. Then I said that, a simple question needs to be asked if you want to start a conversation, because the answer will continue the conversation. Or you make a comment where the comment is added to or given more information by the other person. Now, a wonderful way of starting a conversation, especially if you want that person to feel comfortable with you, if you want that person to help you or to do something for you, is to give a compliment. A compliment is to say something nice. You meet a person, you want to have a conversation with that person, you can always start by giving a compliment. You can say, "Oh, you have come very early today." To be punctual, to be earlier than the time, that is a very good quality. Punctuality is something all of us need. Therefore, you say that you've come right on time. On time is exactly when you're expected. We have another preposition, in time. That means much earlier than the time. So you give a compliment. You can also say, "You are looking very good today." That is a personal compliment, which you can give to your friends, etc. You don't generally tell a stranger that you're looking good, because the stranger might misunderstand if you say such a thing. You can also compliment by saying that, "I looked through your report and it is excellent." So what are you saying? You're starting the conversation by saying, "I looked through your report. Hello, I looked through your report and it is excellent." Then the person replies by saying, "Okay, I worked so hard in completing this report. I did this or I did that." And the person continues to speak about it. You can also compliment a person about something which he or she has. "Hi, I see that you've bought a new car. It looks very great." Or, "This is a wonderful car which you've bought." So the person has bought a car. You notice that the person has bought a car and you're saying, this pleases the other person. Others might not notice. They might just see him using the car but not say anything. When you tell that person that you like the car or that was a wise decision to buy that car, that person automatically replies to you by saying, "Yes, I saw so many cars and I thought this was most suitable for me." And that conversation continues. So you start a conversation by paying a compliment that is very rewarding. Because when you pay a compliment to somebody, that person will automatically respond. That is what we look for when we start a conversation. Whenever you are starting a conversation, please keep in mind that you want the conversation to continue. You don't want it to end in one or two sentences. You don't want to end it only in greeting. So you have to choose areas where you can get the other person to respond. Suppose you say, "I have met you before." The person says yes. End of conversation. Nothing else to say. Then you say, "I remember that you spoke about very interesting things when we met." Now you're complimenting the person. So the conversation which was dying with the answer yes now becomes warmed up. The person responds by saying, "Oh, did you really think so? What did I tell you?" Then you recollect by saying, "You had told us so much about your foreign travel, or you had told us some very interesting jokes. You had a very humorous story to tell us." In this way, you continue the conversation, starting with a compliment where you find that the conversation is dying. The conversation has not started at all. Then you start it by paying a compliment. Now, another way to start the conversation is when you talk about a common interest, like an event. Yesterday we went to the circus, which was amazing. Now you're not complimenting the person who's listening. You're talking about the circus where you might have taken the children and you thought that it was very good. So you start by talking about an event. "We went for a movie yesterday and we found it very boring." Then the other person says, "Which movie was this?" If you tell me, I will avoid going for it. Or the person will say, oh, which movie? And when you give the movie, the person says, oh, I like that movie very much. I don't know why you didn't like it. In this way, you start discussing how the movie was, what was the good points, what were the bad points, and then the conversation continues for a long time. So this is something which both of you share. You can talk about a book. You say that, have you come across this new book? I just read it and I found it worth reading. So the other person says, what book is this? And then they go on discussing the books which they have read maybe in the past 1 month or 6 months, and the conversation goes on for a long time. So a shared interest, an event or something which you have done, which the other person also has done, would be an interesting way of talking. Suppose you have gone to a program together, then that is a great conversation starter. You meet up 1 month after that program. Then you start the conversation by saying, do you remember last month we had gone, and what did you feel about it? Or shall we repeat such a program once more? Shall we go again to another program together? In this way, once you start, you can continue for a long time. Then you can also ask for help. This is one way of starting a conversation by saying, excuse me, I need some help with my pet. So the other person will say, okay, what is wrong with your pet? I think I need to take the pet to the vet, but I don't have any means of transport. So the other person says, okay, I can take you in my car. The conversation continues. What is wrong with your pet? What happened? And which vet do you usually go to? In this way, you are talking about your pet, and the starting is that you asked for help to take the pet to the doctor. The doctor for animals is the vet, V-E-T. So that is veterinary surgeon. So we go to the vet. Asking for help is one way of doing it. Suppose in your office you're not able to do something. Then you say, excuse me, I need some help with this program which I'm trying to design. So you call that person who comes and helps you with the computer program on which you are working. You discuss the program, you discuss where the problems are. The other person also talks a lot. So your conversation is going on. You started by asking for help. Now we have number 8. We have finished 7. And this is number 8 which we are talking about. Number 8 is to think of a common ground, to think of an area where both of you, whoever you're talking to, or the entire group is interested. That would be a conversation starter where you talk about something which interests everybody. Suppose you want to discuss your job with your people who are in the same job but not in your same organization. So you met in an evening where everybody is working in the HR department and they are working in different organizations' HR. So you start by sharing. I must tell you something about what happened in the recent recruitment. So the others will ask, tell us what happened. Or they will also, once you tell them what happened, they will also share their experiences. So all of you are sharing experiences. In many places, there are book clubs. Everybody takes a book, sits in the park and reads it. At the end of it, you can have a conversation. Silently, all have read the book. Then you say, hello everybody, today I have read something very interesting. Shall we spend a little time discussing what we have read today? Common ground. All of you have been reading a book. You are sitting together, sharing your space, But all of you are reading not a single book, but different books. Now you have a common ground. Each one can talk about a book because all are book lovers. They love reading. That is why they assemble every weekend and they read some book or the other in beautiful natural surroundings. So you can do that. Search for a common ground. There are many people who love discussing politics. They may be from different walks of life. Somebody might be a homemaker. Somebody else might be a manager. Somebody is a banker. Somebody is in the teaching profession. All of them are friends. They come together and they talk about politics. So you start by saying, how is the government performing these days? Or let me tell you what are the great advantages of the work which the government is doing. Somebody else says, no, I have many grievances. And then the conversation continues. Because all of you are interested in politics, you're discussing it, but you're discussing it from different points of view. Not the same point of view, not everybody agreeing to what you say, but each one is speaking about their opinions on whatever they think. Now we move to number 9. I told you that I would give you 10 starters. So now we have number 9. If you talk about something positive or something pleasant, something happy to share, you're sharing something, and there it's a great conversation starter. You can say that, I went for a TV quiz and I could get many of the answers correct. So you are saying something positive. You went for a quiz, you participated, and you could answer many questions. Then obviously the other person will ask, which quiz was this? When did you go? Where did you go? What answers did you give? And the conversation continues. So we should have such pointers where the conversation continues. Suppose you have done trekking in mountains which are very difficult to climb. So you come and say that, I could conquer the peak so easily. It was a wonderful experience. It was an exhilarating experience. Then the other person says, which mountain? When did you go? Where did you learn to trek? So many questions. When you answer each of them, your conversation becomes long. So the starter was that you gave some pleasant idea. You can also think of many other pleasant ideas and use it as conversation starters. Now we have the last point, and that is number 10. A good conversation starter is when you want to learn some facts. Whenever you want to learn some facts, you can use that question. You can use that as a question by saying that, good morning, can you tell me how I should assemble this thing which I have bought online? So now you are asking for help also, and you want to learn some facts also. Or you can say that, hello, can you tell me what was the huge sound we heard last night? You're asking for facts. So this is a way to start the conversation, because the person will tell you what the sound was. Then you will tell them what happened, and so on. You start by saying, was there an earthquake yesterday? I could feel some tremors. So you are asking for facts. So your friend is a scientist. That friend says, yes, you could measure this earthquake that, on the Richter scale, it was so much. The conversation continues. In this way, if you use any of these 10 strategies, if you use any one of them, that is good enough. So you can have 10 different conversations based on this. I'm expecting of you who are watching this video to use these starters and prepare conversations of your own so that once you meet the people outside, once you finish practicing and you go out, you can use these starters in order to have an interesting conversation with whoever you meet. That would be a wonderful way of improving your English. Your English improves and becomes better and better when you start generating the sentences from your own mind. I'm giving you many videos for beginners with sentences. Here I have not used a structured sentence pattern. I have just given you some ideas which you can use. So, thank you for watching and all the best for your learning of English in the new year.